Welcome to The Explainer. Generative AI is pretty much dominating our daily workflows right now, but this massive innovation boom, it definitely didn't just happen overnight. In fact, it's literally been 75 years in the making. So let's jump right in and trace the foundation of the tech that's completely reshaping our world. Okay, let's rewind a bit to the summer of 2022. This was well before OpenAI's ChatGPT exploded into the public discourse and became a total household name. There was this recently fired Google engineer who made a truly shocking claim. He flat out stated that their Lambda model might actually be sentient. Now, whether that was true or not, and spoiler alert, it wasn't, it set off massive alarm bells and generated a ton of media buzz. But honestly, it wasn't an entirely surprising claim for the AI community, because we've kind of been expecting a moment like this for a very long time. To really ground all this current hype, we have to look at the whole evolutionary arc. It actually started way back in the 1950s with Alan Turing's famous imitation game, the Turing test, and the 1956 Dartmouth workshop, which officially kicked off the era of AI. Following some, let's say, very early optimism, the 1970s through the mid-90s saw two distinct AI winters. These were tough periods of reduced funding and focus just because of underwhelming results. But then, the internet and rapid business digitization in the 90s and 2000s sparked the rise of machine learning, completely fueled by a flood of new data and IT funding. And, well, that brings us to the 2010s and today, the advent of deep learning. This is the sweet spot where massive breakthroughs in neural networks have allowed computers to do things we previously thought were totally impossible. But here's the thing about our current era. It isn't just about building faster computers or hoarding more data. We're actually looking at a fundamental shift in philosophy. Generative AI represents a total change in the very definition of computation and even chip design itself. We are officially moving away from the classic, rigid rules of software and stepping into a post-digital era that's characterized by continuous, perpetual change. It's just a completely different way of processing the world around us. Just look at the stark contrast here. On one side, you have the rigid, linear exactness of traditional computing. On the other, the abstract, probabilistic logic of a neural network. For decades, a computer did exactly what you programmed it to do, literally step by chronological step. But modern AI, it operates on a completely different wavelength. These models weigh options, they recognize incredibly complex patterns, and they make calculated guesses. Honestly, a lot like the human brain. This is a massive leap from a deterministic machine to a probabilistic one, and it absolutely changes the rulebook for everything. Because the core technology has fundamentally changed, companies now have to operate in similar ways. We really have to redefine what digital maturity even means today. Enter the AI native organization. Now, being AI native doesn't just mean you're a hip startup born in the last 2 years. It's actually about active exploration. It's defined by an organization's true adaptability, how deeply they integrate AI, not just into their shiny new products, but into their daily operations and their very company culture. So what do these early pioneer AI native companies actually look like in practice? Well, for starters, they aren't just blindly buying off-the-shelf software. They're building modern IT infrastructures and establishing a culture that has firm governance. They actively engage their suppliers to evolve together, and they pilot disruptive propositions to hedge against future threats. But most importantly, they see generative AI as a way to fundamentally simplify and transform how they create value, rather than just treating it as another complex, bolt-on tech tool. And make no mistake, adapting to this new reality, it really isn't optional anymore. Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai perfectly captured the inevitability of this shift when he predicted that generative AI will soon impact every product across every company. With insane consumer adoption rates and immense competitive pressure, this technological shift is going to permeate absolutely every single market. Basically, if you're in business, this is coming to your sector, period. To really put that into perspective for your own 9-to-5 life, take a look at this number, 30%. It's expected that 30% of all work hours are going to be directly impacted by AI and its automation capabilities. Let that sink in. That means nearly a third of the time we spend working is going to be completely transformed. It's going to shift how we operate, how we produce, and how we leverage our own human skills alongside these models. And this right here brilliantly illustrates why that impact is going to be so massive. Generative AI is, at its absolute core, an engine of creation. Now, we know it isn't sentient, but it sure does behave in some incredibly human ways. Think about it. Whether it's predicting the end of a sentence, writing complex code, ideating completely novel molecular structures, or seamlessly animating media literally overnight, this generation of AI composes incredibly complex patterns to create entirely new things from the data it's consumed. It is frankly mind-bending. The core strengths here are just staggering. Instead of humans having to manage endless, mind-numbing scales of data, AI steps in to handle the heavy lifting. It sanitizes the data and finds hidden patterns in what just looks like unstructured noise to us. And that's huge because it frees us up to turbocharge our actual knowledge work. It allows us to seamlessly generate multimodal media across text, audio, and video, or even autonomously monitor business processes for continuous 24/7 improvement. So, how does this engine actually operate out in the wild? Well, early pioneers are already using it to completely dominate their sectors. In professional work, legal software is embedding expert AI assistants to scour decades of case law in seconds. Creative studios? They're generating entire animation sequences overnight. For market insights, AI is aggregating mountains of customer feedback to spot actionable trends instantly. We even have text-to-software generators literally building code on demand. And over in customer service, those awful, rigid phone menus are finally being replaced by interactive, conversational chatbots that can actually solve complex issues on the fly. The crazy part is, we are already doing all of that today. But the pace of innovation means we can't just fixate on the present. We really have to look ahead. As we shape the future, there is a whole new wave of developments rapidly approaching on the horizon, and it's going to further change how we interact with, well, all information. We are basically hurtling toward an era of much larger context windows and next-gen enterprise tools that will give companies unprecedented power. But as you might guess, this power is going to trigger a necessary wave of global regulations as governments scramble to keep up. Meanwhile, the visual landscape is about to transform through generative video and a massive AR and VR renaissance spearheaded by the big tech giants. Ultimately, that traditional war for talent, it's over. It's now a war for innovation, where organizations are going to differentiate themselves primarily through their own proprietary data. Okay, so amid all this incredible potential and rapid advancement, we really need to take a step back. Here is the crucial point. By its very nature, AI is unpredictable. Remember how we noted earlier that it operates on inexact, probabilistic logic? Well, it's highly creative and it's very human-like, but that exact same abstract thinking that makes it so brilliant also introduces a profound vulnerability. And that abstract logic brings us face to face with the major risk of the AI era, the hallucination. A hallucination happens when an AI produces totally unreliable, false, or erroneous outputs, but does it with absolute unwavering confidence. When this happens at an enterprise scale, it is bad news. It erodes your data-driven strategy, it limits operational efficiency, and worst of all, it completely shatters customer trust. Because the system isn't deterministic, we just can't always predict exactly how it's going to synthesize the data it's given. Which leaves us with a massive challenge to ponder as we navigate this wild new frontier. If this incredible engine of creation can also produce completely unreliable outputs, how on earth do we maintain trust in a data-driven world? How do we balance the immense creative power of generative AI with the urgent, absolute need for rigorous governance and accuracy? Honestly, it's the defining question of the AI native era, and the organizations that manage to solve it first, they're going to be the ones who truly shape the next 75 years. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.